PPG was created probably about a year or 2 years ago, rapidly went from no members to about 40 in about a month. They have been really actively engaged. They've worked through our projects around our work with ACGME and Equity Matters, and have really been leading this effort for us to create these joint capstones of what we can really do together and be stronger together. So Salandra is the VP at IDSA, and also special thanks to IDSA for also providing project management support for us as part of these efforts. And Tracy Sereiko is the Associate Executive Director of AAPM&R. So I am delighted to turn the podium over to you guys.
Thanks, Helen. I'm really excited to be able to present to you today a little bit more about this joint effort, which really exemplifies everything we've been talking about at this meeting of all the cross-collaboration among our societies. Salandra and I have no disclosures. So just what are we going to talk about today? We really wanted to go over a couple areas. One was to give you a little bit of a background on this cross-collaborative project. Two is we wanted to explain the project structure and its goals, and explain the advisory committee members and give credit to those of you who are in the inaugural societies that have been partnering with us on this effort. We want to go a little bit through the project plans at a very high level so you can understand what we've been focusing on for the last year or so. And then we do want to talk about our long-term commitment, because we went into this with one thought on the duration of the project and have evolved it to a long-term effort, which is really exciting. And then we do have an ask of you a little bit more at the end of the presentation. So first, the cross-societal collaboration, and kind of giving you some background. As many of you know, CMSS partnered with ACGME Equity Matters on development of a framework for learning and improvement in DE&I across the pathway of medicine. And we're really excited to let you know that there's a joint capstone that has really reached a collaboration of 22 organizations within CMSS to really focus on improving DE&I within medicine. Across the entire pathway. And we're really happy about that. Our focus has been on everywhere from undergraduate education all the way through the practicing member who's out in practice, focusing on leadership development. And so we're really excited that we've been able to break up into different groups and really focus on that entire pathway and develop plans for how we want to go about doing that. And so I'll turn it over to Salandra to share a little bit more about how we've structured this very ambitious and exciting endeavor.
Thanks, Tracy and Helen. So one of the things that I wanted to share is when Helen sent the call for interest to those that were participating in Equity Matters, we were so excited, again, as Tracy mentioned, to get 22 societies express interest in this work. And so I just wanted to share foundationally some of the things that were important that just presented the case for this work. And some of our initial discussions involved some initial data collection and research to understand and really agree on the top barriers for entry into medical school and through at least the junior level career pathway. And a couple of those top barriers that we agreed on during our initial conversations, a lack of role models available for those that are underrepresented in medicine, lack of support navigating the application system. Of course, financial barriers, everything from the admissions process through paying for medical school. And then again, support from communities and from professional networks, or at least these support systems have not been very visible to those that have typically been underrepresented in medicine. So some of our initial conversations were just around understanding the strategic areas of focus for the 22 organizations that came together to work collectively on this effort, and to align thoughts on how we would organize. So a couple of early accomplishments were the project scope and the project structure that you see here on this slide. We agreed to appoint an advisory committee, which is composed of 12 members, to oversee the work of both of the work streams. And we also agreed to organize into 2 groups that you see. I lead Group 1's efforts, and that is to focus on increasing the number of diverse individuals into medical school and supporting them through matriculation. Tracy leads the 2nd work group, and that focus is picking up after matriculation and supporting through junior career phases. And we're talking about mentorship, sponsorship, coaching programs, those types of support systems. And then common across both projects is a goal to ensure the availability and harmonization of demographic data across these pathways so that we can understand where the support needs are. So as I mentioned, we, over the summer, announced the advisory committee consists of 12 members. So these esteemed experts have been providing lots of expertise to us along the way. We also announced over the summer that Dr. Bonnie Mason would chair and has chaired this advisory committee. Some of you may know that Dr. Mason is one of the principal architects of the Equity Matters program. She's also currently the medical director of DE&I at the American College of Surgeons. So we're very happy to have her leadership and her expertise leading this project. This is a nod to the 22 societies that are participating currently, which we hope to expand. We have 8 organizations participating in workstream number 1, and we have 17 participating in the 2nd workstream, and we actually have 3 organizations that have representatives across both. So broadly for both projects' year 1 timeline, initial discussions were really a lot of consensus building and of course understanding the interests and needs and where current investments and programming exist for organizations and understanding of the barriers that we want to address. Where can we make the most impact? Where does it make sense to put our energy, our time, and our resources? Then throughout, we've moved to establish our goals and then long-term planning. At the conception and during our ongoing conversations, one key thing that we want to emphasize that we've talked repeatedly, that this is a multi-year effort and commitment for all of us. This is something that we will continue to work on outside the confines of the Equity Matters program, which ends in December. So again, a multi-year effort. So we have one plan through December, and then another longer-term strategic plan that takes us through the next couple of years. So the 4 or 5 barriers that I mentioned were the basis for the goals that we established, and this is specifically for Project 1. I won't read all of these, but I will note that the first one mentioned is the one we chose to prioritize, and that is for the broad adoption of an undergraduate faculty development, mentorship, and cultivation program. This really gets at the inclusion piece of what we're doing. As we're looking to bring more folks into the profession, we want to make sure that the environment is, and the climate and culture is supportive. We know that there are issues with retention, and we don't want to lose precious talent once they've expressed interest. So specifically for Project 1, we have enjoyed several accomplishments over the past couple of months. We've been able to establish our short and long-term goals. We've been able to develop our long-term strategic plan. We've also been able to develop our action plan for everything that we'll want to do for year 1. And we've also been able to connect with several external partners, several meetings, who are working on a national level and doing some similar work. One of the things that we were clear about up front is that we would do heavy research on exemplars and make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. We don't need to recreate the wheel, but where can we align where folks have some similar interests and goals? And so very quickly, just want to outline, this is just our visual for our long-term strategic plan, which you can see spans over the next couple of years and helps to articulate the length of time that it might take for us to achieve each of the goals that we have set out to achieve. Again, the power of our collaboration is really in the understanding that we're looking for long-term and sustainable outcomes for the work that we're doing. This is an investment of time and resources for all of us, and it's a passion. And so just looking at this from the long-term perspective has been very helpful, and we'll continue to do that.
Thanks, Salandra. And I'll go through a little bit more about Project 2. And as a reminder, this work stream was really focused on once medical students are into the societies and moving through your society, how are we supporting them in getting into leadership roles? And our goals, we have 3 main goals that we've been focused on, and it's taken us a bit of time to get that consensus around those goals and where we want to focus across the societies. But the first one is really looking at saying that there is not a one-size-fits-all solution, and so looking at aggregating the different programs in leadership, mentorship, and sponsorship across the different societies, and understanding what those are going on within all the different organizations. And then what we want to do after we do that is create a curated resource via CMSS for all of us to understand what's going on there and be able to see those different programs, understand how they're aligned with different organizational sizes, organizational resources, and budgets. And then ultimately, kind of in the midterm, we want to engage in a very dedicated research effort, ultimately to develop metrics. So how do you evaluate effectiveness of those programs? And what we will need from the societies is for them to be able to tell us how are they measuring their individual programs, and what's working, what's going well, how are they making an impact? And then out of that, ideally, we want metrics that we can share with the different societies as they start their own programs or as they evaluate their own programs and develop them and grow them. So from a timeline standpoint, basically, we really spent the summer months coalescing around who we're going to target. That is critical. As we know, we have to define the audience and who we're going to focus on. When you're talking about, from entry into your society, from medical school all the way up through practicing career member, that's a lot of folks. So we really focused on, in our first efforts, prioritizing those in residency and in fellowship, and in the influencers of those folks, so your fellowship directors, your program directors, as our primary target audience and where we wanted to start our efforts. And then we started to talk about our program goals throughout the summer and how to focus on those projects that I mentioned. And as you can imagine, that takes some time with 17 societies and getting us all on the same page. Into the fall month, we've started now on developing a survey instrument because we want to go out to all the CMSS members and start to collect their programs. So we're really focused on the collection process. How are we going to do that? It's a big endeavor to get that level of participation. So we've started to coalesce around development of those questions because we don't just want to ask about leadership mentorship programs. We want to be very prescriptive in describing those definitions so that the organizations understand and can give us very much more information and more detail on those programs. We've also focused on our long-term planning effort overall across the 2 work streams, as Salandra mentioned. And we have identified, there are lots of strategic dialogues that we want to continue to have together. We went into this knowing it wouldn't be the 18-month capstone timeline only, and really have focused on developing those kinds of dialogues. The knowledge sharing and commitment to the action plan has been tremendous. And we're in the process right now of looking at how we can develop the financial and resource commitments from different organizations to help continue to advance that strategic plan that Salandra mentioned for this multi-year effort. So, I promised an ask. Our ask of you is the first one, hopefully will be the simpler, but we really would like for all societies in CMSS to participate in this survey to help us understand across the pathway of medicine, all the things going into medicine, as well as for your members, what kinds of programs do you have in leadership, sponsorship, and mentorship when we send that survey out. So we're asking for all societies to participate in that so that we can collect that information to advance this effort. And then secondly, we're asking you to join our inaugural societies in putting this forward. It really is something that we can be stronger together, we can make a difference. So there will be more information coming from CMSS on how you can participate in that in the future. Thank you.